The dust never settled on New Horizon anymore. 3 years of war had turned the colony planet into a graveyard of broken buildings and burned earth. Taman moved through the ruins with his rifle ready and his medical pack heavy on his back. Behind him, 5 other soldiers from his unit spread out across what used to be a Velkari supply depot. The explosions had stopped an hour ago. Now there was only smoke and the distant sound of gunfire from another sector. Taman's boots crunched on broken glass as he entered what looked like a command center. The walls were scorched black. Bodies lay scattered across the floor, both human and Velkari. He had learned to ignore the dead. 3 years of war taught a man many terrible lessons, and that was the first one. The living needed him more than the dead ever would. "Clear on the east side," Do-Yun's voice crackled through the radio. His friend sounded tired. They all sounded tired these days. Taman moved deeper into the building. The Velkari built everything too tall for humans. Their doorways rose 3 meters high, and their chairs looked more like platforms. He had seen enough of their outposts to know the layout by heart. Command center, barracks, storage, and always a small chamber in the back where officers rested between shifts. That's where he found her. The Velkari warrior lay against the wall, her obsidian scales cracked and bleeding purple blood. Her armor was shattered across her chest. She had minutes left, maybe less. But that wasn't what made Taman stop moving. It was the small bundle she clutched against her body with both arms. A child. Velkari didn't look much like humans. But a baby was a baby in any species. This one was tiny, barely the size of a human toddler, with soft gray scales instead of the hard black ones adults grew. Its eyes were closed. For a horrible moment, Taman thought it was dead too. Then it made a sound. A small, frightened sound that cut through all the noise of war and hit something deep in Taman's chest. The dying warrior's eyes opened. They were golden, like all Velkari eyes, but dimmer now. Fading. She looked at Taman, at his human face and human uniform, and she understood what he was. The enemy. The one who probably fired the missile that tore through this building. She should have tried to kill him. That's what soldiers did. That's what the war had taught both their species. But instead, she lifted the child toward him. Her arms shook with the effort. Purple blood dripped from her mouth as she tried to speak. Taman didn't need to understand Velkari language to know what she was saying. She was begging. She was asking him to save her child. "Taman, what are you doing?" Do-Hyun appeared in the doorway, his rifle pointed at the dying Velkari. "Step back. I'll finish her." "She's already finished," Taman said quietly. He moved closer to the warrior, keeping his hands visible, non-threatening. The child in her arms was crying now, soft whimpering sounds that made his heart hurt. "Then let's move. Command wants us out in 5 minutes. They're going to hit this whole sector from orbit." Taman reached out slowly. The Velkari warrior watched him with those fading golden eyes. He could see the fear in them, the desperate hope. He had seen that same look in the mirror 3 years ago, when he held his sister in his arms as their colony burned, when he couldn't save her. His hands closed around the child. It was warm and surprisingly light. The warrior let go, her arms falling to her sides. She made one more sound, something that might have been "thank you" in her language, and then she was gone. Her eyes stayed open, staring at nothing. "Have you lost your mind?" Do-Hyun grabbed Taman's shoulder, spinning him around. "That's a Velkari. They killed millions of us. They burned Earth's colonies. They killed your sister, Taman, your sister." "I know what they did." Taman's voice was steady even though his hands were shaking. The child was looking at him now with large golden eyes, confused, scared, alive. "I know better than anyone." "Then why?" "Because I'm done watching children die." Taman opened his medical pack and carefully placed the child inside, cushioning it with bandages. "I'm done with all of it." Do-Yun stared at him like he was a stranger. Maybe he was. Maybe war had changed them both into people they wouldn't recognize. "They'll execute you for this. You know that, right? Harboring an enemy combatant during wartime, that's treason." "I know." "Taman." The radio crackled with their commander's voice. "All units fall back to extraction point. Orbital strike in 4 minutes. I repeat, 4 minutes. Move now." Taman sealed his medical pack and ran. Do-Yun followed, still cursing under his breath. They sprinted through the ruined building, out into the smoke-filled streets, toward the landing zone where their transport waited. Other soldiers were already boarding, their faces black with soot and exhaustion. Taman climbed into the transport and sat down hard on the bench. His pack moved slightly. The child inside was quiet now, either asleep or in shock. He couldn't tell which. Lieutenant Minho Kim was doing a head count when he noticed Taman's pack moving. "Sergeant Kang, what's in your medical bag?" The transport went silent. Every soldier turned to look at Taman. He could feel their eyes on him, could feel the weight of what came next. He thought about lying. He thought about waiting until they were back on the carrier ship, where it would be too late to do anything about it. But lies never saved anyone. He had learned that lesson too. "A child," he said simply. "Velkari. About 2 years old, I think." The lieutenant's face went red. "You brought an enemy onto this transport? During an active military operation?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand what you've done?" Taman met his eyes. "I saved a child, sir. That's what I did." The transport lifted off. Through the open door, Taman could see the city falling away beneath them. Seconds later, white light filled the sky as orbital missiles struck the surface. The blast wave hit the transport, making it shake. Everything below turned to fire and dust. The Velkari warrior's body was gone now, vaporized with the rest of the outpost. But her child was here, warm and breathing in Taman's medical pack. He had saved one life today. Maybe it wouldn't change anything. Maybe they would execute him for it tomorrow. But for now, in this moment, one child was alive who would have been dead. And that had to mean something. It had to. The holding cell on the carrier ship Indomitable was 3 meters by 3 meters. Gray walls, gray floor, 1 bed, 1 toilet, 1 small window that showed nothing but stars. Taman had been there for 6 days. They had taken the child away immediately. He didn't fight them. What could he do? Fight trained soldiers while holding a baby? Get them both killed? So he let them take the small creature from his arms and watched as medical personnel carried it away to some quarantine room. The child had cried. That sound followed him into his cell and stayed there. On the 7th day, Captain Yuna Choi came to see him. She was younger than Taman expected for a military lawyer, maybe 30 with sharp eyes and hair pulled back tight. She sat across from him at the small metal table and placed a data pad between them. "Sergeant Kang, I'm your defense attorney. We have very little time, so I need you to be honest with me. Why did you save that child?" Taman had asked himself the same question 1,000 times in this cell. "Because it was a child. Because it was the right thing to do." The right thing. Yuna tapped her fingers on the table. "You understand that from a military perspective, that Velkari child is an enemy combatant. Under wartime law, all Velkari are classified as hostile. It was a baby. The law doesn't care about age. Then the law is wrong." Taman's voice was flat. He had no energy left for anger. "I'm a medic. I took an oath to preserve life, not just human life, all life." Yuna leaned back in her chair. "That's good. That's the argument we'll use. The medical oath supersedes military orders in cases of non-combatant casualties. The problem is proving that child was truly non-combatant. It couldn't even walk properly. Walk, talk, Or pull a trigger. I know. Yuna pulled up something on her data pad. But here's what the prosecution will argue. They'll say you compromised the mission. They'll say you risked your entire unit by bringing an unknown entity onto the transport. They'll say you violated direct orders regarding enemy contact, and they'll say you committed treason by harboring an enemy of humanity during wartime. Will they execute me? Yuna met his eyes. She didn't look away. Yes, probably. Unless we can make the tribunal see what you did as an act of humanity, not treason. The door opened. 2 guards brought in the child, now contained in a clear medical box with air holes. It looked wrong, seeing a living creature in a cage like that. The child saw Taemin and immediately pressed against the clear wall, making those small crying sounds again. "We need you to interact with it," one of the guards said. "For the medical team, they want to study how it responds to you." Taemin stood slowly. His hands were shaking as he opened the medical box. The child practically jumped into his arms, wrapping small arms around his neck and burying its face against his shoulder. Its scales were soft, not like adult Velkari scales at all. It was warm. It was terrified. "Shh," Taemin whispered, rocking gently back and forth. "You're okay. I've got you." The child's crying stopped. It made a different sound now, something almost like a purr, contentment, safety, trust. Yuna was watching with an expression Taemin couldn't read. "You call it something. The guards told me. Little Star? I can't pronounce its real name, if it even has one yet. Little Star seemed, I don't know, right." The medical team confirmed it's female, about 18 months old by Velkari standards, malnourished, dehydrated, but alive because of you. Yuna made a note on her pad. "We can use this. We can show that you weren't thinking like a soldier. You were thinking like a medic, like a human being with basic empathy. Will it be enough? I don't know." The guards took Little Star away after 20 minutes. She cried again, reaching back toward Taemin even as they carried her out. The sound cut through him like broken glass. Yuna stayed. She pulled up more files on her data pad. "I need to show you something. Something intelligence discovered yesterday. That child isn't just any Velkari." The screen showed an image of a massive Velkari warrior. Female, with scales like black glass and eyes that seemed to burn with inner fire. She wore armor covered in battle scars and carried herself like death itself. "High Commander Thesarin," Yuna said quietly. "Supreme military leader of the Velkari 7th Fleet. She's personally responsible for the destruction of 4 human colonies. 15,000 civilian deaths. She's the most wanted war criminal in human space." Taemin stared at the image. "What does this have to do with—" "That child is hers. We confirmed it through genetic markers. You didn't just save any Velkari child, Sergeant. You saved the daughter of our greatest enemy." The words sat heavy in the small cell. Taemin looked at the gray walls, the gray floor, the stars through the window. He thought about Little Star's soft scales and frightened eyes. He thought about her mother, this destroyer of worlds, holding her baby close as she died. Even monsters loved their children. "Does anyone else know?" he asked. "Intelligence knows. Command knows. They're trying to decide what to do with this information. Some want to use the child as a bargaining chip. Some want to—" Yuna paused. "Some want to kill her, publicly, as a message to the Velkari." Taemin's hands clenched into fists. "No, you can't stop them. I won't let them kill a child. I don't care whose child she is. Even if saving her again costs you your life?" "Yes." Yuna studied him for a long moment. Then she closed her data pad and stood. "You're either the most noble person I've ever met or the most foolish. I can't decide which. Does it matter? To the tribunal? No. To me?" She paused at the door. "Yes, it does." After she left, Taman lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his sister, her laugh and her dreams of becoming a teacher. He thought about the colony where they grew up, the one the Velkari burned to ash. He thought about 3 years of war and all the death he had seen. And he thought about little Star, warm and alive in his arms, trusting him completely even though he was supposed to be her enemy. Somewhere on this ship, High Commander Thessarin's daughter was sleeping in a cage. Somewhere in space, High Commander Thessarin was probably preparing another attack on human colonies. The war would continue. People would keep dying. But that child would live. Taman had saved her once. He would save her again if he had to, even if it cost him everything. Because some things mattered more than war. Some things mattered more than revenge. Some things were simply right. The tribunal would come. The judgment would fall. But tonight, one child slept safely, who would have died in orbital fire, and that was enough. It had to be enough. The tribunal lasted 3 hours. Taman stood in his dress uniform before 5 senior officers who would decide if he lived or died. They asked questions. He answered honestly. He didn't apologize for what he did. He couldn't. When it was over, they told him to wait in his cell for their decision. That was 4 days ago. Now he sat in that same gray room, eating gray food, waiting for a verdict that would probably end with a bullet. He had made peace with it. Some choices were worth dying for. The door opened without warning. Major Jiho Han stood there, his intelligence officer's uniform crisp and perfect. His face showed nothing. "Come with me, Sergeant. You need to see something." Taman followed him through corridors he had never seen before, deep into the ship's command section, past guards and locked doors, into a communications center filled with screens and busy personnel. Everyone stopped working when they entered. "Show him," Jiho said to a technician. The main screen lit up. It showed a Velkari ship, massive and dark against the stars. The design was different from their usual warships. This one was a flagship, command vessel, and it was transmitting a message on human frequencies. "This arrived 6 hours ago," Jiho explained. "It's from High Commander Thessarin herself. She's requesting a ceasefire negotiation." Taman felt his stomach drop. A trick? That's what everyone thought at first, but listen to her conditions. The screen changed. It showed the Velkari commander in full detail. She was even more terrifying in motion than in still images. 2.5 meters tall, built like violence itself, with those burning golden eyes fixed on the camera. When she spoke, the translator software rendered her words in flat, emotionless human language. "I am High Commander Thessarin of the Velkari 7th Fleet. I address the human military command. You hold something precious to me. Something I believed lost in fire and death. My daughter lives because one of your soldiers chose mercy over revenge. This soldier saw a child instead of an enemy. This is not something my people understand easily." The commander paused. Something crossed her face, an emotion Taman couldn't name. "I propose immediate ceasefire for negotiation. I will meet with human representatives on neutral station Meridian. But I have one condition that is not negotiable. The human who saved my daughter must be there. I will speak with him directly. No others will do. If you refuse, if you have harmed him, or if you attempt deception, I will burn your colonies until nothing remains but ash and memory. You have 48 hours to respond." The screen went dark. Taman stood frozen. Every person in the room was looking at him now. Some with hope, some with fear, some with anger. "She wants you," Jiho said quietly. "The most dangerous military commander in Velkari space wants to meet with a human sergeant who should be facing execution. Command has been arguing for 6 hours about what this means." It means she wants her daughter back. Obviously, but why ask for you specifically? Why not just demand the child's return and threaten us if we refuse? Taman thought about the dying warrior in that burned building, the way she had looked at him, the way she had trusted him with her most precious thing. Because I showed her people something they don't expect from humans, mercy, honor. Maybe she wants to understand why. Or maybe she wants to kill you personally. Maybe. Admiral Soo-hyun Park entered the room. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes like steel. She had commanded the fleet for 15 years and had fought the Valkyrie since the war began. She looked at Taman like she was trying to see into his soul. Sergeant Kang, you put us in an impossible situation. We can't trust the Valkyrie. They've broken ceasefire agreements before. They've used negotiations as cover for attacks. But if we refuse this meeting, that commander will do exactly what she promised. She'll burn everything. Then I'll go, Taman said simply. You understand this is probably a trap. She probably wants revenge for holding her child captive. She might torture you, kill you slowly, make an example of you. Maybe. But maybe she really does want to talk. Either way, I'm the only one who can find out. The Admiral studied him. Why did you do it, Sergeant? Why save that child? You knew it would cost you everything. Taman thought about his sister, about little Star's frightened eyes, about 3 years of death and destruction that seemed like it would never end. Because I'm tired of killing, ma'am. I'm tired of watching people die. Human or Valkyrie, it doesn't matter anymore. They all bleed. They all cry. They all love their children. If there's even a small chance that saving one child might stop this war, then whatever happens to me is worth it. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. You're either the bravest soldier I've ever met, or the biggest fool. Captain Choi? Yuna stepped forward from where she had been standing near the wall. Yes, Admiral? You'll accompany Sergeant Kang to the negotiation, as his legal counsel and as a witness. If this is legitimate, we need someone there who can actually negotiate. If it's a trap, she paused. At least you can report what happened. Understood, ma'am. One more thing. The Admiral's voice dropped. The child goes with you. That's what the commander wants. Her daughter returned safely. We're not monsters. We don't kill children no matter whose children they are. Taman felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me yet. You might not survive the next 48 hours. They prepared quickly. A small diplomatic shuttle, minimal crew, and maximum security protocols. Little Star was brought aboard in her medical container. The moment Taman took her out, she clung to him like he was the only safe thing in the universe. She's bonded to you, the medical officer explained. It's common in young Valkyrie. They attach to one caregiver and trust that person completely. You're the only human she doesn't fear. Taman held her carefully. She was heavier than before. They had been feeding her properly. Her scales were brighter, her eyes more alert. She looked at him and made that purring sound that meant she felt safe. What will happen to her? He asked. That depends on the negotiation, on her mother, on whether any of us survive the next 2 days. The shuttle launched from Indomitable and set course for Meridian Station. It would take 36 hours to reach neutral space. 36 hours of wondering if they were flying into peace or death. Taman sat in his quarters with Little Star sleeping in his arms. Yuna sat across from him, reviewing diplomatic protocols on her datapad. You know this changes everything. Right? She said without looking up. If the negotiation works, you'll be the human who ended the war. If it fails, you'll be the fool who trusted the enemy and got himself killed. I know. Which do you think it will be? Taman looked down at the sleeping child, so small, so innocent, so completely unaware that the fate of 2 civilizations might rest on whether her mother could forgive humanity for 3 years of war. I think, he said slowly, that a mother who begs an enemy soldier to save her dying child is not a mother who wants endless war. I think she's tired, too. I think maybe she's looking for a way out, just like we are. And if you're wrong, then at least this little one will be back with her mother. That has to count for something. Yuna finally looked up. Her expression was softer than before. You really believe that, don't you? That saving one life matters? It's the only thing I believe anymore. Outside the shuttle window, stars streamed past. Somewhere ahead, on a neutral station in the dark between worlds, the most dangerous warrior in Velkari space was waiting. Waiting to meet the human who saved her daughter. Waiting to decide if mercy was weakness or strength. Waiting to choose between war and peace. Taemin held Little Star closer and hoped he had made the right choice. Hoped that compassion could be stronger than hatred. Hoped that one small act of kindness could somehow bridge the gap between species who had been killing each other for 3 long years. He would know soon enough. Meridian Station floated in the space between territories, neutral ground maintained by independent traders. It was old and patched together, but it had survived the war by refusing to take sides. The shuttle docked without incident. No weapons fire, no tricks, just silence and waiting. The airlock opened. Taemin stepped through carrying Little Star, with Yuna close behind. The station corridor was empty except for one figure. High Commander Thessarin stood like a monument carved from obsidian. She was larger than any human, broader, with scales that seemed to drink the light. Her golden eyes fixed on Taemin, then dropped to the small bundle in his arms. For a moment, nothing moved. The universe held its breath. Then the commander made a sound. It was soft, almost breaking, completely unlike what Taemin expected from a legendary warrior. She took one step forward, then another. Her movements were careful, controlled, as if afraid that moving too fast would shatter something precious. Little Star lifted her head from Taemin's shoulder. She looked at her mother. For a heartbeat, Taemin feared she wouldn't remember. 18 months was young for any species. But then the child made a cry, reaching out with both small arms, and the commander's careful control broke completely. She crossed the distance in 2 strides. Taemin held out the child, and Thessarin took her daughter with hands that shook. The great warrior, destroyer of colonies, terror of human space, held her baby and made sounds that were half words and half grief. She pressed her face against the child's head, breathing in her scent, checking her over with gentle touches that looked wrong on such violent hands. She's healthy? The commander's voice was thick with emotion even through the translator. Yes, Taemin said. Fed, hydrated. The medical team took good care of her. You took care of her. Those golden eyes fixed on him again. You held her when she was afraid. You kept her safe when you had no reason to, when every reason told you to let her die. I couldn't let a child die, any child. Why? The question came out harsh, demanding. My people have killed yours. I have killed yours. I led the attack that burned New Beijing. That was my fleet, my orders. 15,000 of your people died because I commanded it. Yet you saved my daughter. Explain this to me. Taemin met her eyes. Because she's not responsible for the war. She's just a child who wanted her mother, and her mother, in her last moments, was just a parent trying to save her baby. That's something I understand. That's something that goes deeper than war. Thessarin was quiet for a long time. Her daughter had fallen asleep against her shoulder, finally safe after weeks of fear and confusion. The commander's hand moved in slow, gentle circles on the child's back. An automatic parent gesture that existed in every species. You shamed us, she finally said. You showed my people something they did not think humans capable of. Honor, mercy. The strong protecting the weak, even when the weak are your enemies. These are Velkari values, ancient values. We thought you were just soft mammals who would break easily. You are not soft. You are something we did not expect. What did you expect? Monsters. The same monsters we became to you. Yuna stepped forward carefully. High Commander, we should move to the negotiation room. There's much to discuss. Yes. Thessarin shifted her daughter's weight. But first, I invoke an ancient custom of my people. Sergeant Kang saved my daughter's life. This creates a debt that cannot be repaid with words or treaties. By Velkari law, he is now guardian to my bloodline. His life is bound to hers until the debt is satisfied. Taemin blinked. I don't understand. You will come with me, to my ship, to my territories. You will help raise my daughter and advise my house on matters of honor and protection. This is not a request. This is the weight of a life debt, and it cannot be refused. You want me to leave human space, to live among the Velkari? Until the debt is repaid. This could be months, years, perhaps longer. You saved her life. Now you must be part of her life. That is our way. Yuna looked alarmed. High Commander, you can't just take a human soldier. I can. I have. The debt is absolute. He may refuse, but then honor demands I challenge him in combat. He will die, and the debt will pass to his bloodline. His family will serve mine until balance is achieved. These are the old laws. They do not bend. Taemin thought about his sister, dead these 3 years. He had no other family. If he refused and died, the debt would die with him. Or would it pass to his entire species? He didn't know how Velkari law worked. But he understood the look in Thessarin's eyes. She was serious. This was real. If I agree, he said slowly, I want something in return. The commander's scales rippled. Surprise. You dare negotiate with a life debt? I dare. Because you're not just a mother. You're a military commander. You have the power to make this war worse or make it stop. If I'm going to leave my people, leave everything I know, then I want it to mean something. I want a ceasefire. A real one. Talks between our species. Not just me serving your house like some prisoner. If you want me to honor this debt, then you honor my price. Silence fell over the corridor. Yuna looked like she might faint. The commander's golden eyes burned into Taemin's. He didn't look away. Then Thessarin did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a harsh, scraping sound, but it was genuine. You are bold for such a small creature. Very well. I accept your terms. Ceasefire while you serve my house. If the debt is repaid and peace is not achieved, the war continues. But for now, no more burning colonies. No more dead children on either side. Agreed. Then come. My ship waits. You have much to learn about my people, and my daughter will need you. She trusts no one else. The next hours passed in a blur. Documents were signed. Protocols were established. Yuna would stay as a liaison, shuttling between human and Velkari space. Taemin would go aboard the flagship Eternal Claw and begin a life he could never have imagined. The Velkari ship was massive inside. Corridors rose 3 meters high. Everything was built to a scale that made Taemin feel like a child. Crew members stared as he passed. A human, on their flagship, walking beside their commander. It was unthinkable. His quarters were small but functional. They had tried to adjust things for his size, a lower bed, a smaller chair, but it all felt strange, alien, wrong. A Velkari officer appeared at his door. She was younger than the commander with bright green scales instead of black. I am Captain Nari. I have been assigned as your liaison. I speak your language well. I will teach you our ways. Her tone made it clear she wasn't happy about this duty. Thank you, Taemin said. Do not thank me. I think you are a weakness. A soft human in the heart of our fleet, but the commander has spoken, and I obey. Come. You will eat with us tonight. You must learn our customs. The dining hall was enormous. Hundreds of Velkhari warriors eating and talking in their harsh, clicking language. When Taman entered beside Nari, every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to him. He felt their hostility like a physical weight. Thesarin was already seated with her daughter on her lap. She gestured to an empty space beside her. Sit. You are under my protection. No one will harm you here. Taman sat. The food was strange, meat that was too red, vegetables that were too bitter. But he ate, because refusing would be an insult. Little Star watched him from her mother's lap, then reached out with one small hand. Taman took it gently. She missed you, Thesarin said quietly. Even with me returned, she looks for you. You are part of her now. I'll take care of her. I know. That is why you are here. The commander paused. My people will not accept you easily. They see humans as weak enemies, as prey that fights back with clever weapons but no real strength. You must show them otherwise. How? By being what you are, by standing when others would break, by showing mercy when we would show none. By teaching my daughter that strength and compassion are not opposites. She looked at him with those burning eyes. You have already done something impossible. You made me see humans differently. Now you must do the same for my people. And if I can't? Then the war will continue when your debt is paid, and everything we do here will mean nothing. She turned her attention back to her food. But I do not think you will fail. You have already proven that humans are capable of things we did not expect. Show us what else you can do. That night, alone in his quarters aboard an enemy flagship, Taman lay awake and wondered what he had agreed to. He was one human among thousands of Velkhari. One soldier in the heart of enemy territory. One medic who had made an impossible choice, and now had to live with the consequences. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Little Star's face, safe, alive, happy. That had to be worth something. It had to be enough. 3 months passed like water through a broken cup. Taman learned Velkhari customs, stumbled through their language, and spent his days caring for Little Star. The child followed him everywhere, chattering in a mix of Velkhari and the few human words he taught her. At night, she insisted on sleeping in his quarters, curled up on a pile of blankets he made soft enough for her small body. The crew slowly accepted his presence, though acceptance and trust were different things. They called him the human pet when they thought he couldn't hear. Captain Nari remained coldly professional, teaching him their ways, while making it clear she thought this whole arrangement was a mistake. But Thesarin changed. She watched him with her daughter, and something in her golden eyes shifted from suspicion to something else. Respect, maybe, or understanding. She began asking his opinion on small matters, then larger ones. Then one day she summoned him to the war room. The chamber was filled with Velkhari officers studying star maps and tactical displays. They went silent when Taman entered. The hostility was immediate and obvious. A human in their most sacred space? It was an insult to everything they believed. Sergeant Kang, Thesarin said formally, we are planning our next offensive against the human colony at Redstone. I want your perspective. Taman's blood went cold. Redstone was a civilian colony, 20,000 people, families, children. You said there was a ceasefire. For now, but my fleet grows restless. They need to see action. We will strike when your debt is paid. She gestured to the tactical display. Look at our plan. Tell me what you see. He didn't want to. Everything in him screamed to refuse. But he looked. The Velkhari fleet would approach from the asteroid field, using the debris for cover. They would strike the orbital defense platforms first, then bombard the surface installations. It was a solid plan, efficient, deadly, and completely flawed. "The asteroid field," Taman said quietly. "You're using it for cover." "Yes, standard approach. We have done this many times." Redstone has been preparing for that. They've mined the asteroid field, spent the last 6 months seeding it with proximity explosives. My people learned from your tactics. You go in there, half your fleet will be destroyed before you even see the colony. The room exploded with angry clicking. Officers shouted in Velkari. One large warrior stepped forward, looming over Taman. "You lie to protect your people." "I'm telling the truth to save lives on both sides." Taman didn't back down. "If you don't believe me, send a scout. Check the asteroids. But if you go in with your full fleet, you'll lose thousands of your people for nothing." "Why would you tell us this?" another officer demanded. "Why warn us of your own people's defenses?" "Because—" Taman looked at each hostile face, then at the Sarin. "Because this war is pointless. Because Velkari warriors will die for nothing. Because after you lose half your fleet, you'll still bombard that colony, and 20,000 humans will die. Because everyone loses and nothing changes. That's not strategy. That's just mutual destruction. You are weak," the large warrior spat. "This is why humans will lose. You have no stomach for real war." "I have plenty of stomach for war. I've fought in it for 3 years. I've seen what it does. I've held dying soldiers from both sides. War isn't about stomach. It's about death. And I'm tired of watching people die when there are better ways." Thessarin raised one hand. Silence fell immediately. "Scout team, verify what he says. If the asteroids are mined, we adjust our approach. If he lied," she looked at Taman, "then we will discuss the consequences." The scout team returned in 6 hours. The asteroids were mined. Exactly as Taman said, the trap was real and would have decimated the Velkari fleet. That night, Thessarin came to his quarters. Little Star was asleep in her blanket nest. The commander sat down on the floor, too large for Taman's human-sized furniture. She looked tired, old, like the weight of the war was finally showing. "You saved my warriors today," she said. "You betrayed your own people to protect mine. Why?" "I didn't betray anyone. I prevented pointless death on both sides. That's different." "Is it? Your people will call you traitor when they learn of this." "Maybe, but they're wrong. Being a traitor means helping the enemy hurt your people. I helped prevent my people from committing suicide by taking half your fleet with them. That would have just made you angrier, made the retaliation worse. More colonies would burn, more children would die." He paused. "How do you end a war like that?" "I do not know." Thessarin looked at her sleeping daughter. "I have been fighting for so long, I forgot there could be other ways. My people see strength only in victory, in domination, in never showing weakness. But you—" She shook her head. "You show weakness constantly. You care for children. You prevent death instead of causing it. You give away tactical advantages to save enemy lives. By every measure of Velkari culture, you are weak. And yet, you are the strongest person I have ever met." She said it like the words hurt, like admitting this cost her something precious. "You stand in the heart of enemy territory and refuse to hate us. You hold my daughter with the same gentleness you would hold a human child. You tell me the truth even when lying would benefit you. That is not weakness. That is something my people have forgotten, something we lost in all our wars and victories. What did you lose? Honor, real honor, not the honor of warriors and battle, the honor of protecting those who cannot protect themselves, of being strong enough to show mercy, of being brave enough to choose peace." She stood, too large for the small room. "I do not know how to make my people understand this. They will see any peace offer as surrender, as weakness. They will challenge me, try to remove me from command. Then show them you're still strong. Show them that choosing peace takes more courage than choosing war. How? Taemin thought about the past 3 months, about slowly learning Velkari culture and beginning to understand how they thought. Challenge them first. Make it personal. In your culture, strength is proven through combat. So prove your strength. Show them you're not weak. Then, from that position of proven power, offer peace. They can't question your strength if you've already demonstrated it. You suggest I fight my own officers? I suggest you remind them why you're the commander, why they follow you, then use that authority to change course. Thessarin was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded slowly. You are wiser than your years, human. Or perhaps your people are simply different from mine in useful ways. She moved toward the door, then paused. My daughter loves you. Did you know that? She speaks of you constantly. Guardian Taemin who saved her, who teaches her gentleness, who shows her that not everything must be solved with violence. She's a good kid. She will be better than me. Better than all of us, because she is learning from both our peoples, from Velkari strength and human compassion. Perhaps that is what this universe needs. Children who are taught both ways. The commander looked back at the sleeping child. Thank you, Sergeant, for saving her twice now, once from death and once from becoming like me. After she left, Taemin sat in the darkness and thought about what came next. The ceasefire wouldn't last forever. Eventually, his debt would be paid and decisions would have to be made. Would the Velkari choose peace? Would humanity accept it? Could two species who had killed each other for 3 years learn to coexist? He didn't know. But he knew that little star deserved a chance to grow up in a universe that wasn't defined by war. That children on both sides deserved better than what their parents had given them. The next morning, Thessarin summoned her senior officers to the combat arena. She fought 3 of them in formal challenges. She won all 3 without killing any of them, proving her strength while showing mercy in victory. Then, standing over the defeated warriors, she made her declaration. I am your commander by strength of arm and clarity of vision. Does anyone else wish to challenge this? No one moved. Then hear my words. This human, Sergeant Kang, has shown me something we forgot. That true strength is not just the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when destruction serves no purpose. He saved my daughter when he could have let her die. He saved our warriors when he could have let them fly into a trap. He has lived among us with honor and courage despite being surrounded by those who hate him. If a lone human can show such strength, what does that say about us? The officers were silent, listening, struggling with concepts that challenged everything they believed. When his debt is paid, I will offer the humans true peace negotiations, not a ceasefire, not a temporary stop, peace, a real end to this war. And if any of you believe this is weakness, then challenge me now. Prove you are stronger than the warrior who defeated 3 of our best today. Prove you have better wisdom than the commander who has led you to victory after victory. No one challenged her. Taemin watched from the observer's platform, holding Little Star. The child was too young to fully understand, but she sensed the importance. She reached up and put one small hand on his cheek. Guardian safe? She asked in broken human language. Yes, he told her. Everyone's safe now. He hoped that was true. He hoped this was the beginning of something better. But even if it wasn't, even if everything fell apart tomorrow, today, one commander had chosen wisdom over war. Today was enough. It had to be. 6 months after Taemin stepped aboard the Eternal Claw, the diplomatic summit was arranged. The location was chosen carefully. New Horizon, the same planet where this all began, where Taemin had found a dying warrior and her child in the ruins of war. The planet had been partially rebuilt. Human and Velkari work crews had cleared the rubble under the ceasefire agreement. It was strange seeing both species working side by side, not shooting at each other. Strange, but hopeful. Taman stood in the conference hall with little Star beside him. She was bigger now, learning to speak both languages with the quick adaptation of young minds. She wore a small diplomatic sash that Thessarin had made for her, marking her as the commander's daughter. But she held Taman's hand like she always did when she felt nervous. The human delegation arrived first. Admiral Park led them, along with Captain Yuna and several diplomats. When the admiral saw Taman, something complicated crossed her face. "Sergeant Kang, I see the Velkari haven't killed you yet." "No, ma'am. They've treated me well. I've read Captain Choi's reports. What you've done is unprecedented. Some call you a hero. Some call you a traitor. I'm not sure which is correct. Maybe both, ma'am. Maybe neither." The Velkari delegation entered from the opposite side. Thessarin led them, massive and imposing, with her senior officers behind her. The two groups faced each other across a table designed to accommodate both species. The tension was thick enough to cut. "We are here," Thessarin began, "because one human showed my people something we did not expect. Honor in the face of hatred. Mercy in the moment of victory. He saved my daughter when he had every reason to let her die. This changed my understanding of your species." "And what do you understand now?" Admiral Park asked. "That you are not prey. You are not weak mammals to be conquered and discarded. You are warriors with your own kind of strength. A strength my people lack." She paused. "My warriors fight well, but they do not know when to stop fighting. Sergeant Kang showed me that knowing when to stop is harder than knowing when to start." "Pretty words," one of the human diplomats said coldly. "But you've killed thousands of our people, burned our colonies, destroyed families. How do we move past that?" "The same way you move past killing thousands of ours." Thessarin's voice was hard. "War is not one-sided death. You have burned our ships, destroyed our outposts. We are both soaked in each other's blood. The question is not who killed more. The question is whether we continue killing or choose something different." "What are you proposing exactly?" Taman stepped forward. He had discussed this with Thessarin many times over the past months. A joint colony, human and Velkari living together, sharing resources, raising children who know both cultures. A proof that coexistence is possible. The room exploded with objections from both sides. Human diplomats called it insane. Velkari officers called it an insult to their strength. The noise grew until Little Star, frightened by the shouting, made a small, distressed sound. Immediately, both Thessarin and Taman moved to comfort her. The commander picked up her daughter while Taman kept his hand on the child's back, making soothing sounds. The two of them, human and Velkari, united in the simple act of calming a scared child. The room went quiet. Everyone saw it. The symbolism was too obvious to miss. "This is my daughter," Thessarin said quietly. "She is Velkari. But she calls a human her guardian. She speaks both our languages. She is not afraid of humans because she has lived with one who treats her with kindness." "If a child can do this, why can't we?" "Because adults carry grudges children don't understand," Admiral Park said. But her voice was softer now. "Because we remember what you did to New Beijing, to the colonies you burned. And I remember what you did to the fleet at Kessler Station, the colony ships you destroyed before they could even land. We both have blood on our hands, Admiral. The question is whether we want our children to inherit that blood or something better." Yuna stood up. "Let's be practical. Even if we agree to try this, who would volunteer? What human would choose to live alongside the Velkari? What Velkari would accept humans in their territory?" "I would," Taman said simply. "I've lived with them for 6 months. It's not easy, but it's possible. If others could see what I've seen, they'd understand that Velkari aren't monsters. They're just different. And from my side, Thessarin added, Captain Nari has volunteered to help lead the Velkari delegation. Every head turned to the green-scaled officer who had been Taemin's liaison. She looked uncomfortable, but stood firm. The human proved himself worthy over these months. If one human can do this, others can. I will teach my people to work with yours. The discussions went on for hours. Debates about location, resources, security, governance. There were 100 reasons why it wouldn't work. But slowly, as both sides talked, some of those reasons started to feel less solid. The colony proposal began to take shape. Then the explosions started. The building shook. Alarms blared. Security forces rushed in, shouting about attacks. Taemin grabbed Little Star and ran with the human delegation toward one exit, while Thessarin and her officers moved toward another. But the corridor was blocked by fire and debris. They were trapped, humans and Velkari, forced together by circumstance, with whatever extremists had launched this attack closing in. "Defensive positions," Thessarin commanded. Her officers formed a perimeter, weapons ready. The human security forces did the same, creating two separate defensive lines. "This is stupid," Taemin shouted over the alarms. "We're defending against each other while the real enemies are out there. We need to work together." "He's right," Admiral Park said. She looked at Thessarin. "Commander, I suggest a combined defense. My people know human tactical patterns. Yours know Velkari ones. Together, we can—" "Agreed." Thessarin gave quick orders in both languages. The two defensive lines merged into one, humans and Velkari fighting side by side for the first time. The attackers came from both species. Extremists who wanted the war to continue. Humans who had lost families and wanted revenge. Velkari who saw peace as weakness. They had coordinated their attack perfectly, timing it to kill both delegations and reignite the war. But they hadn't expected their targets to fight as one unit. Taemin shielded Little Star, while Velkari warriors defended human diplomats. Human soldiers covered Velkari officers during reload. Captain Nari fought beside Yuna, their movements synchronized without planning. In the chaos of combat, species didn't matter. Only survival. When security forces finally cleared the building, 12 attackers were dead or captured. 3 human soldiers were injured. 2 Velkari warriors were wounded, but everyone from both delegations survived. They stood in the smoking corridor, humans and Velkari breathing hard, covered in dust and blood, and looked at each other with new understanding. "We fought together," Admiral Park said, sounding surprised. "Yes." Thessarin cleaned her weapon calmly. "And it worked. Better than either of us fighting alone." "The extremists wanted to restart the war," Yuna observed. "They came from both our peoples. That means both sides have those who refuse peace. Then both sides must work together to stop them." Thessarin looked around at the mixed group of defenders. This is what the joint colony must be, not just humans and Velkari living near each other, but truly together. Defending each other. Building something neither species could build alone. "Can we really do that?" one of the human diplomats asked. "Can we move past years of hatred?" Taemin looked at Little Star in his arms, then at the mixed group of soldiers who had just saved each other's lives. "We just did. If we can fight together, we can live together. If we can protect each other in battle, we can build a home together in peace." The summit resumed the next day. The attack had changed something fundamental. Both delegations had seen their people work together, had seen that cooperation was possible when necessity demanded it. By the end of the week, they had an agreement. A joint colony would be established on New Horizon. Volunteers from both species would live together under shared governance. Resources would be pooled. Children would be educated in both cultures. It would be small at first, experimental, with both sides free to withdraw if it failed. But it was a start. Taman stood with Thessarin on a balcony overlooking the future colony site. Construction crews were already clearing land, human and Velkari working side by side. "Your debt is paid," the commander said quietly. "You have done more than save my daughter. You have shown both our peoples a path forward. You are free to return to human space if you wish." Taman thought about it. He could go home, see Earth again, live among his own people. But when he looked down at the construction site, at the future being built, he knew his answer. "I'll stay. Someone needs to help make this work. Besides," he smiled, "Little Star would miss me." "She would." Thessarin's voice was warm. "And so would her mother." Together they watched the sun set over New Horizon. The planet had seen so much war, so much death. Now it would see something different, something better. A bridge between worlds built on the foundation of one soldier's choice to save a child. It was enough. It had to be. 5 years later, Unity's landing thrived under two suns. Taman walked through the colony's central plaza, watching the morning crowd. Human children ran past Velkari merchants. Velkari parents shopped at human-run stores. A mixed group of teenagers sat on benches, talking in a fluid blend of both languages that neither species used alone anymore. They called it Unity Speak, this hybrid tongue that belonged to neither culture and both. It wasn't perfect. There were still fights, still prejudices, still families who refused to forget what the war had taken from them. But there was also laughter, friendship, couples who had fallen in love across species lines, creating families that defied old hatreds. Taman was older now, with gray showing in his hair. He worked as the colony's chief mediator, settling disputes and helping both species understand each other. It was exhausting work that never ended. But it mattered. "Guardian!" a voice called in Unity Speak. He turned to see Little Star running toward him, except she wasn't little anymore. At 7 years old, by Velkari counting, she stood nearly as tall as Taman, with scales that had darkened to deep gray. She wore the uniform of the Integration Academy, the first school designed for both species. "Shouldn't you be in class?" he asked. "Free period. I wanted to show you this." She pulled out a data pad showing her latest project. It was a comparative study of human and Velkari approaches to conflict resolution. Sophisticated work for someone her age, but Little Star had always been brilliant. "This is excellent work." Mother helped with the Velkari perspective. You helped with the human side. But the conclusions are mine. She looked proud. "Teacher says I might present it at the sector conference next month." "You should. It's important work." They walked together through the plaza. Little Star pointed out various improvements the colony had made. A new shared medical facility that combined both species' healing methods, an art gallery showing works by integrated artists, a playground where children of both species played games that mixed human and Velkari rules. "Do you miss it?" Little Star asked suddenly. "Your old life, before you found me?" Taman considered the question. "Sometimes. I miss Earth, my friends, the simplicity of knowing who the enemy was." He paused. "But I don't regret what I did. Not for a moment. Even though it cost you everything, your rank, your home, your people's trust, I gained different things, a purpose, a family." He smiled at her. "A very annoying daughter who asks too many philosophical questions. I'm not your daughter. I'm your ward. There's a difference." "Is there? You live in my house half the time. You come to me with problems. You call me guardian the same way human children call their parents." He ruffled the smooth scales on her head, making her laugh. "Feels like a daughter to me." They reached the colony's memorial garden. It was a shared space, with monuments to fallen soldiers from both species. names carved in stone, representing lives lost in 3 years of war. Taman came here often. His sister's name was on one wall. The name of Little Star's father was on another. "Do you think they would be proud?" Little Star asked quietly. "The ones who died? If they could see what we built?" "Some would be. Some wouldn't understand. War makes everything simple. Peace is complicated." He touched his sister's name on the wall. "But I think the ones who loved us would be glad we chose life over more death, that we chose to build instead of destroy." His communicator chimed. It was Yuna, now the colony's human representative. "Taman, we have a situation. Council chamber now." He arrived to find the council in emergency session. Yuna looked stressed. Thesarin, now the colony's Velkari representative, looked grim. Captain Nari was there too, along with other human and Velkari leaders. "What's wrong?" Taman asked. "New conflict," Yuna explained. "Frontier sector. Humans encountered another species called the Rythan. Things went bad. A human patrol killed Rythan civilians. Now both sides are mobilizing for war. What does that have to do with us?" "This." Thesarin activated a holographic display. It showed a news report from the frontier. A young human soldier stood in restraints, face bruised, looking defiant despite obvious fear. The reporter's voice played over the image. "Private Kyungmin Lee faces execution for protecting enemy young during the Rython encounter. Military command calls it treason, but some are calling him a hero, comparing his actions to Sergeant Taman Kang of Unity's Landing. The question remains, will humanity repeat past mistakes or learn from them?" "They want you to go," Thesarin said, "both the human military and the Rython leadership. They've heard about Unity's Landing, about how one soldier's choice to protect a child stopped a war. They think you can do it again." "That's not how it works," Taman protested. "I didn't stop the war. The war stopped because both sides chose to stop, because commanders on both sides were willing to try something different." "Then teach them that," Yuna said. "Go to the frontier. Show them what we built here. Show them that peace is possible." "I'm not a diplomat. I'm just a medic who made one choice. That's exactly why they'll listen to you." Thesarin stood, towering over the table. "You are not a politician with an agenda. You are simply a man who saw a child and chose compassion over revenge. That story has power. Use it." Taman looked around the room, at faces both human and Velkari, all looking at him with hope. "I can't do this alone." "You won't have to." Yuna stood. "I'll come, as a representative of what human-alien cooperation can achieve. As will I," Thesarin added. "The Rython need to see that even former enemies can work together." "And me!" Little Star pushed through the door, having obviously been listening outside. "If this is about protecting children, then a child should have a voice. I can show them what growing up in two cultures looks like." "Absolutely not," Thesarin said firmly. "It's too dangerous. Mother, I'm not a baby anymore. I'm the result of what Guardian Taman started. I'm living proof that this works. They need to see me." Thesarin looked at Taman. He saw the conflict in her eyes. The warrior who wanted to keep her daughter safe. The leader who knew Little Star was right. "If she comes," Taman said carefully, "we protect her. All of us. Human and Velkari security together, the same way we protected the summit 5 years ago." "Very well." Thesarin's voice was tight. "But she stays close. Always." The ship departed 2 days later. A joint vessel, human and Velkari crew working together. It was a long journey to the frontier, and Taman spent the time preparing. What would he say? How could he convince two species on the brink of war to choose differently? Little Star found him in his quarters the night before arrival. "You're nervous." "How can you tell?" "You get this expression. Like you're solving a problem you can't quite figure out." She sat beside him. What if it doesn't work? What if they fight anyway? Then we tried. That's all anyone can do. Try to make things better even when it seems impossible. Is that what you thought? When you found me in that building? That saving me would make things better? No. I just knew I couldn't let you die. The rest happened because other people made choices too. Your mother chose to listen instead of just taking revenge. Admiral Park chose to give peace a chance. Captain Nari chose to see humans as more than enemies. It wasn't just me. It was all of us. Then we make them see that. We show them that peace isn't one person's choice. It's everyone choosing together to try something different. The frontier station was tense when they arrived. Human and Rhython ships faced each other across a neutral zone, weapons armed, both sides waiting for an excuse to fire. But the Unity's landing delegation was granted permission to dock. The meeting room held representatives from both sides. The Rhython were insectoid, with multiple limbs and compound eyes that made humans uncomfortable. They clicked and hummed their language through translators. The human military officers looked exhausted and angry. Private Kyungmin Lee sat in restraints between guards. He was young, maybe 20, with the same expression Taemin remembered having 5 years ago. Defiant, scared, absolutely certain he had done the right thing. "Thank you for seeing us," Taemin began. "I know you don't know me, but 5 years ago, I was in the exact same position as Private Lee. I saved a child who was supposed to be my enemy. My people wanted to execute me for it. Instead, something different happened." He told the story. All of it. The dying warrior, the choice in the burning building, the tribunal, the life debt, the slow building of trust between species who had killed each other. He told it plainly without making himself a hero. Then Yuna spoke about the diplomatic process, the challenges of building peace, the practical benefits of cooperation over conflict. Then Thessalon spoke about changing her mind, about learning that strength and mercy were not opposites, about watching her daughter grow up in a culture that valued both. Then Little Star stepped forward, a 7-year-old child who was the living result of one soldier's choice. "I don't remember the war," she said in clear Unity speak, translated for both sides. "I don't remember when humans and Velkari killed each other. I only know what came after. I have a mother who is Velkari and a guardian who is human. I speak 2 languages. I have friends from both species. I am proof that enemies can become family." She looked at the Rhython representatives, then at the human officers. "I don't know your species. I don't know what happened between you, but I know that if you choose war, children will die. Children who could have grown up to bridge your cultures like I bridge mine. Children who could have become something neither of your species has seen before. Is your pride worth more than their lives?" The room was silent. Then the Rhython leader clicked softly, the translation coming through. "The young one speaks with wisdom. We came here expecting monsters. We see instead creatures capable of growth, of change, of choosing differently." "We came expecting the same," Kyungmin said from his restraints. "But when I saw their young threatened by our weapons fire, I couldn't let them die. Not for this. Not for a misunderstanding that spiraled into shooting." The human commander looked at Taemin. "Did it work? Your colony? Really work? Or is it just for show?" "It works," Taemin said honestly. "Not perfectly. We still have problems, prejudices, conflicts. But we solve them together now instead of with weapons. And every child born there knows both cultures. They're building something we couldn't imagine during the war. Something better." "Show us," the Rhython leader requested. "We would see this Unity's landing. If enemies can truly become allies, we should know how." The visit was arranged. Representatives from both species traveled to Unity's landing, where they saw humans and Velkari living together, working together, raising children together. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. 3 months later, the first human-Rhython joint settlement was established. Private Kyungmin Lee was pardoned and became its first mediator. Taemin returned home to Unity's landing. Little Star went back to her studies. Yuna and Thessarin continued their work, building the colony into something that could endure. But the message spread to other conflicts, other borders, other species meeting for the first time. The story of Unity's landing became known across settled space, not as a miracle or a fairy tale, but as proof that enemies could choose differently. Years later, when Taemin was old and gray, when Little Star had children of her own who called him Great Guardian, someone asked him if he regretted anything. He thought about it, about everything he had given up, about the simple life he could have had if he'd just walked past that dying warrior. "No," he said finally. "I saved one child. That child helped save thousands more. That's enough. That's always been enough." And it was the end.